I remember in 2009 when we began our strategy that we were calling quoted private equity. And what we really meant by that was, how do we leverage on our expertise? Private equity is our background. So we were planning to use our private equity expertise in the listed space. So we made a very interesting observation. We observed that if you take out the 5 most liquid counters in any stock exchange in Africa, you are left with relatively illiquid assets. What do I mean by that? These are assets where investors don't really research much about. These are investments which are below the radar of most investors. These are investments or assets which have sometimes very significant potential for growth. So that really was the reason why we coined the word or the phrase quoted private equity. So our first investment, I remember, was in a Kenyan company, a very mid-sized company, and the majority shareholder was in a distressed situation. And it took us, I remember, 2 weeks to agree on a price, but took us another 3 months to go through the regulatory hurdles of having the investment approved by the regulators. So eventually we put in about $4 million or 400 million shillings. And in a matter of about 24 months, that investment opportunity gave us back 1.2 billion shillings. It was a very successful investment, and it was a stamp of approval that our philosophy, our strategy of using our private equity expertise in the listed space actually works. So we got the confidence, and from there we started moving around the continent. We went to Ghana. I remember in Ghana, I found this bank that I was calling the equivalent of CBA. And that bank, when we put it against all other banks in the continent, it was ranking as the cheapest bank in the continent. And I remember in 2011, October, we put in about 300 million shillings. And in 6 months, that portfolio went up, or rather that asset went up 3 times. We made a lot of money. From there, we've also done interesting things. We've gone to Tanzania, we've invested in Egypt, we've invested in Rwanda. I remember Rwanda was a very, very risky investment. We didn't have custodians, and we just looked at our risks and managed our risks, and we put in 40 million shillings in their first listed company, and in a couple of years that was able to give us more than 250 million shillings. So in Tanzania, I found this company that the share price was always flat for a long period of time. Then it would go up, then it would remain flat, would go up, remain flat. But the operating profit was consistently increasing. And I look at that company and I said, you know what? This is the best company that I've ever seen in terms of opportunity. And we put in a lot of money, about 800 million shillings. And in about 28 months, that company was able to give us back 3.3 billion shillings. It was amazing, and it has continued to prove that we have our secret sauce of identifying very difficult to unearth opportunities in Africa really works and can create phenomenal returns. Of course, we've also lost money, and I remember one day I was just coming from parking my car, and I was walking along the streets, and our newspaper vendors who normally sell newspapers very early in the morning, and I decided just to glance at the headlines, and the thing that really caught me was this headline that said Airtel slashes tariffs by 67%. Right there I just felt something in my stomach, and I said, today I'm really having a bad day. And I walked to the office, and I knew it was going to be war. And the market opened, and the Safaricom share was at 5 shillings and 60 cents, and the first person to sell sold at 5 shillings and 55 cents. Then it went to 5 shillings, then to 4 shillings and 55 cents, and all the way to 5 shillings. And when we got to 5 shillings, we realized, you know what, this was the IPO price. Someone must be crazy to sell below the IPO price. And an investor, foreign investor, from nowhere, just, you know, slapped the market and sold at 4 shillings and 90 cents. And from there, just hell broke loose. And, you know, I remember my last share I sold at 4 shillings, and I made, you know, a loss of 160 million shillings. I'd never made that kind of a loss. But anyway, I took that money and I put it somewhere else, and we were able to recover. So yeah, it's been interesting to invest in Africa. Africa is really the place to you know, experience very phenomenal returns if you have the right manager. I would not choose anywhere else to invest, and I would not choose anywhere else to live than this place called Africa, our beloved continent. And I really hope that, you know, as we continue engaging with one another, I'll be able to, you know, share my experience and pour out the wisdoms and the learnings that we have picked up along the years, and help you also to be able to become to participate in investing in Africa and make incredible returns together. Thank you very much for watching.